Hey everyone, I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear how one woman struggling with addiction found power in showing up at the right places and choosing to believe. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad you're here with us today, and we're really excited to have our special guest with us, Victoria Maldonado. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm loving your background, by the way. I feel like it's the perfect framing of everything, and it's very pretty. I like it.
Represents the Montanas, the mountains.
There you go. Oh. Which brings us to where you're from, correct?
Yeah. So right now we're living in Montana. My husband and I met in Dallas, and I kind of grew up all over.
Okay. So you guys met down here in Texas where I'm at.
Yes. We met at a Dallas YSA.
Oh, okay.
It works.
Cool. Apparently. I heard that Dallas, I think, is getting a second temple. Isn't that crazy? And was it Dallas or is it Houston? It's one of those cities. I should know. There's two temples that are going to be really close, and I'm all excited for it. Of course, it's not anywhere close to me because it's 5 hours away still. But
sure.
The fact, any time that you get double temples within an hour of each other and you're not in Utah, that's a big deal. Pretty impressive. Yeah. Much someone's going to fact check me and be like, Alicia, you're just making stuff up, which is possible. But I swear that I thought I heard something about one big Texas city, maybe Houston, maybe Dallas, getting another temple close by to one of them. So anyway, someone tell me what that is. Someone do the research, look it up. But the show is not about me. It's about you today. So Victoria, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So I've been living here in Montana kind of on and off for the past 5 years. And that's 5 years ago was when my husband and I got married. We're just living here. We're doing a lot of traveling. We have our own little business, and it's just us and our really annoying dog buddy. He's great. Oh. He's a lot.
Is he?
Yes. Yeah, and we're thinking about starting a family soon.
Oh, well, that's exciting. Congratulations on that. What kind of business do you guys have, if you don't mind me asking?
We have a business where we staff construction projects.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very nice. Mm-hmm. You are among fellow entrepreneurs here, so.
Yeah, my husband is a serial entrepreneur. Everything he has an idea for.
Yep.
Love it.
It can be scary.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's fun.
Fun and scary. Like a haunted house. As long as you make it through, everything's good.
Right. You might have some rocky moments.
Exactly.
Just watch out for the chainsaws. That's the part I don't like.
Those are the worst. They used to make me pee my pants when I was younger.
I don't even go anymore because I'm afraid of the chainsaw guy. I know it's not real, but man, it's in my head.
Oh man. Yeah, I just can't go because I have a really, really weak bladder now. And so it's just age. I can't outrun them, and I love my kids too much to sacrifice them. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, they know me. They see me and they're like, you're scared. And so I'm going to scare you even more.
Yes, and they can put a target on them.
They can smell fear.
They can.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, too funny. All right. Well, Miss Victoria, no chainsaws here in this show. Not today anyway, so it shouldn't be too scary. But Scott and I would love to invite you to go ahead and let us know where your story begins.
Sure. So like I said, I grew up kind of traveling. We lived in a motorhome. There were 6 of us in my family in a 40-foot motorhome from ages 3 to 13. So
Okay.
that was fun and a lot. Once I was like 13, I was really ready for my own bedroom.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I would say that growing up, I was always a very curious person. I wanted to make the mistakes on my own to learn from it. You could tell me not to do something because of a certain reason, and I would probably like challenge it and say, well, are you sure? Are you sure? I'm just going to try it for myself. And so that kind of plays in later to, I guess I was like that, but also very rebellious. And so those two things combined were kind of the making of like what the spiral ended up, or like what ended up as the spiral. So we were members. We grew up in the church. Wherever we went, we always had a ward family, which was really nice. That even though, because we were homeschooled, we didn't go to school. We didn't have any friends that we kept up with really often. So going to church was kind of our one big social thing that I knew for sure was always going to happen no matter where we went.
Right.
I really did enjoy church growing up. For me, it was very social. And like, I definitely heard what they were saying about the gospel, and it made a lot of sense to me. But I never took things that seriously. And I just thought that things would be easy. I thought that, I could make all my decisions, make all my choices, and then everything would be okay in the end. So I think that when I was younger, being old enough to understand that there are things I'm going to face coming up in my life, I didn't at that point make the choice to not do specific things. In fact, I think I kind of made the choice that I was going to figure it out myself, which is very, very me of me. So when I was about 13, we moved into our house, and I kind of got like a freedom that I hadn't known before. I think at that point was really when, I had this newfound privacy, the newfound, space. And I was like, I just want to try some things, just experience some things. I'd say 14 or 15 is when I tried alcohol, tried other, like smoking and everything. And it wasn't because I was peer pressured into it. Like, I looked for it. I was excited. I was like, what is this thing? I want to know about it. I want to experience what it's like. And so me, like a 14 or 15-year-old, I was absolutely determined, and I would ask strangers on the street, can you buy me alcohol? Which, looking back now, being older than I was then, if a 14 or 15-year-old came up to me and asked me to buy them alcohol,
yeah, you'd be like, sure, where do you live? And I'd go tell their parent.
What's your mom's number?
Yeah. Wow.
I ended up, having my little friend group that definitely enabled me. If I wasn't around somebody if somebody who I was around was disapproving of the things that I wanted to do, well, then like, they don't have to be around me, was kind of my thought pattern.
Right. Well, you had been asking people, did you actually get takers? Like, do you remember that first experience of drinking or trying cigarettes or?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My friend Emily and she was just the most down person I've ever met. I said to her, I looked at her and I said, Emily, today I want to try alcohol. And she said, okay. And so we broke, we snuck out of her father's house at night, and we went up to random people and we asked if they would buy us alcohol. And the first people that we asked did give us alcohol.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And then we ended up, like, they had other people bring it to us, and then they're in a car and they said, if you want to come with us, we're going to go to somebody's house and we're going to drink. And I'm 14 or 15 years old.
Like, as a parent, I'm stressing out right now.
I don't know that my mom knows this story. I'm sorry, Mom. And so they said, like, we can go somewhere and we can all drink together. And that sounded like fun. And so I get into, like, the back of a pickup truck with a whole bunch of just men that I don't know.
Oh
and
God.
At that point, when we're driving, is when I kind of looked at Emily and I was like, oh no, what have we done? And I think often about the fact that I put myself in so many dangerous situations that could have ended so badly. And I'm so grateful for the safety that we had at that time. And we definitely had someone looking after us. Those were,
wow.
Yeah. I would say through high school, I just wanted to be with my friends and party. And the friends that I had were older than me. And we would get together and we would smoke and we would drink. And I probably was drinking at like 15, 16 years old, like 3 to 4 nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And these are like school nights. Like, it was just because I wanted to feel that good feeling that alcohol gave to me. And it not fixed, but it kind of dampened all the other big feelings that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel good. It made me feel happy. When I was 17 is the first time that I tried amphetamines. And it was like I discovered me. And I think that this is something that happens a lot with addicts, is that, they try their drug of choice and it's like something just like locks into place. And they're like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. This is the real me, the real person that I am.
Wow.
I was me, but I was doing all my homework and so interested in every single subject that there ever was. I was making amazing grades in school and I loved everybody. My heart was so full of love for everyone. I was able to work out and not eat as much. So I was, losing weight, which is something that, mentally and physically, I struggled with a little bit. And so I just really felt like I was my best self on drugs.
Wow.
I didn't really look at it like that though. I looked at it as, it wasn't really a drug to me. It was what I take in order to be the real me. Like, real me wasn't off drugs. Real me was on drugs.
Wow.
Yeah. I went through high school, the rest of high school, and man, I got such good grades. It was really it was the best.
Wow.
I graduated high school, moved on, was going to college. one of my friends was living with us, and we were going to college together. And one night I took my friend over to I took Miranda, my friend who was living with us, over to another person's house. And I left the room for a minute. And then when I came back, something was just so wrong with my friend. And I had been drinking a lot that night. And I had also been on amphetamines, which are stimulants. So kind of an up and a down. And so I'm asking my friend, like, what happened? Why are you acting like this? And she said, like, actually, it's okay. Like, I'm just going to go and sleep in the car because we were going to spend the night there. And I was like, this is literally the most stupid thing I've ever heard of. Like, no, you're not going to sleep in my car. You know, I'm going to drive you home, make you feel bad. So we're driving home. I'm probably going like 90 and a 70. And I'm yelling at her because she made me leave the place where I wanted to be. She told me that something inappropriate had happened with somebody there. And I didn't believe her, and I just kept on yelling and speeding. As I'm yelling, she looks at me and she says, "You're being pulled over." And I think like just in that moment where she said, "You're being pulled over," like my emotions, everything, just I'm being arrested tonight and there's nothing that I could say or do to get out of it. So kind of I just dissociated and my body did what it had to do. He did a breathalyzer and he turned it toward me and he said, "Do you see what that says?" And I saw 0.06 and I was 20 at this time. So I was like, it's 0.06. That's over the legal limit of 0.08. So because I'm drinking and I'm underage, he has to arrest me. Cool. It wasn't until I got the blood alcohol results back that I realized that what I probably saw was a 0.16 because my blood alcohol was a 0.19.
Yikes.
And I know that unless something crazy had happened that night where like another car was being unpredictable, I would have made it home. Probably that night. But I'm so, ultimately I'm so thankful that I was arrested for all of this because, and my license taken away for a very long time because eventually I was going to hurt either myself or someone else. And I'm so sure of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I want to touch base real quick on just for our listeners, because I'm sure that there's probably a lot of people who aren't familiar. So amphetamines, I'm not sure what it was someone's prescription pills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people use them for like ADHD and stuff like that. So it actually does help them out when used properly under doctor's orders for your size and stuff like that. So when a lot of people, they might have heard you saying like, "Oh, you're your best self." Well, it could have been because you miraculously were taking the right dose. You know what I mean? Like it could have been something like that where even though you weren't doing it in the right way, maybe it was the right medicine for you. It just wasn't your medicine. And so that's what was illegal and dangerous about it, was that you didn't have a doctor. Maybe you did have like an ADD or ADHD that was kind of calmed down so that you could focus more on your schooling and you could focus more on the things that you needed to do. But the danger in that is that you just don't know when a doctor's not watching you, right? So like Scott and I just want to make it clear, if there's teenagers or someone here listening, don't go asking your friends for amphetamines, right? Like if you're going to get them, you need to go through the right channels, make sure that you get a doctor and stuff like that, because it could be helpful in the right way, in the right dosage, under the right care. But yeah, like you were saying, you were so lucky to, so many times when you were pushing the envelope that you had that protection around you somehow. So
yeah, absolutely. And I also want to say as well as obviously, being prescribed and having a doctor watching over you. I know people who use drugs for ADHD, medication for ADHD, that absolutely need it. And it helps them so much with their life. There is a point where you overdo it, where I guess you're
right.
I mean, I had not built up the tolerance in my system. So I think absolutely it was helping me to combat a lot of the ADHD symptoms that I do have and did have. But it was after that kind of the increase in, well, if one is fun, two must be great.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Did your parents know what, that you were taking these drugs or that you were drinking? Like, did you hide it from them?
I did try to hide it as best as I could. I got caught a few times, and always with this resolution to, like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to be better. I'm going to, not be around people that I know I can get drugs or alcohol from.
Right.
But I eventually did tell my mom that I was taking my friend's ADHD medication, and she was very upset at me and lectured me for sure. But I said, like, this is something that I want to talk to a doctor about, getting on the medication. So eventually I did get prescribed this medication.
In the right way. Good.
Mm-hmm. However, in the wrong doses, and the way that I was taking them was what was not okay. Yeah.
So what happened with that? With the doctor giving you wrong doses?
So yeah, I eventually went to a psychiatrist when I was about 20, and he ended up prescribing me about double what a regular doctor would have started the prescription for. I mean, he really went from almost, like something real low to something really high. He knew what he was doing. Like, it was really like, when I took it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, this is what I want, but like times a million. He also prescribed me what are like barbiturates in a dosage that was very, very inappropriate. I didn't even, like, I knew at the time that it wasn't appropriate for me. So I didn't even tell people exactly how much he was giving me, because I knew that it was not a safe thing for me and, my body and what I actually needed. But he prescribed it to me in that way because in order to be all the way up here, I needed to have some way to come down. And if I didn't have that, then I wouldn't be able to sleep. I wouldn't be able to, get rid of the anxiety that the uppers can cause.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I read an article just a few days ago. I knew that the doctor had gotten in trouble for something in the past, but he's been completely, like, his medical license has been taken away. He's been investigated by, the board of
medical
medicine. Yeah, multiple times. So it wasn't an isolated case. This was a doctor who was over prescribing everyone.
That's terrible.
Yeah. I, hmm. So at a certain point, I definitely stopped feeling like I was my best self. I realized that in order to feel the same way, I had to take more of the drug, and then the drugs just weren't working for me the way that they used to, and I didn't feel the way that I used to. It was probably one of the most like lonely times in my life, because I would take the, amphetamines, and I would stay up all night, and I would be awake all night by myself, like realizing that I'm not even doing the thing that I wanted to take these drugs to do, which was to like be better at school. Honestly, that was like my biggest thing. My biggest motivation was I want to be better at school. And then somehow I'm failing all of my classes. I withdrew from a whole bunch. I couldn't focus. I was only at that point like medicating myself to feel normal. I wasn't trying to get high. I was just trying to not be so low that, like going through withdrawal. And yeah.
Did you know that was kind of what's normal for that medicine, or for that prescription to do, like where you have to kind of keep adjusting levels because your body's going to become resistant to it? Like, were you aware of that, or was that a shock to you?
I was aware of that. I didn't really listen to the doctor's guidelines. If they said like take 30 milligrams of this thing per day, when 30 didn't feel the way that I wanted it to feel, then we went to 40, and then we went to 50, and then we went to 60. And yeah, I never really thought of it as a problem, as an addiction. I looked at it like just my medication. My medication sometimes works, my medication sometimes doesn't work.
Gotcha.
But after I had, went to jail and gotten my conviction, I was put on probation for 18 months. I had to use an at-home breathalyzer 3 times a day because I didn't have a car, and my parents absolutely refused to let me put one of those in their cars. They said, you got yourself into this mess, you can get rides. So I had this breathalyzer that I had to do 3 times a day. And I really considered myself as like, I thought I was doing controlled drinking, because what I would do is I would weigh myself, and then I would look at the little chart to see how much I could drink. And if I breathalyze at this time, then if I drink that fast, then all of it should be out of my system by the time I have to breathalyze again. I really thought that that was controlled drinking, like honest.
Oh my goodness.
So I ended up failing a bunch of times. My probation officer eventually said, because she had given me extra community service hours, she had given me like 15 hours of AA to complete. And she said, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give you jail time. And that was really scary for me. I did not want to go to jail. I don't think I would do very well. So I had that going through my mind. Also, at this point in time, I am not well. I probably lost like 40 or 50 pounds, and I'm not like a big person. Like, I'm not a tall
That's a
person.
lot. Yeah, I was gonna say you look small already. So that's a lot.
Yeah. My dad one day said that I looked ratty. So yeah,
That's
I
something every woman wants to hear.
I was like, oh yes, thanks, Dad.
Wow.
I mean, they had expressed to me before that I was looking too, too small. I didn't eat. I didn't really eat because the amphetamines
Just don't make you
completely
hungry.
blocked my appetite.
Yeah. Like a
Mm-hmm.
suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I was lacking nutrients, and so I would get bruises everywhere. Any little bump would cause bruises.
And you're still drinking at this point with the medication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is also a suppressant. Like, people who drink typically don't get as hungry. Wow.
Yeah.
So were you numb at this? Like you're like, what was going through your mind? Were you just trying to beat the system? Were you just trying to feel normal, or trying to make your feelings go away? Like, what was the purpose of doing this?
I think what I told myself was that I'm doing this so that I can be good at school, because being good at school and achieving things, accomplishing things was a very important thing for me. So I knew that, from my experience of when I was taking it in high school, that, I can get so much done while I'm taking these medications. I think eventually it did turn into me just kind of trying to feel normal. Yeah. There comes a point especially with stimulants, where, you take it one time and you go way up. And you're like, wow, that was amazing. And then maybe a few times later you go up, not as high, but there's always that dip.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take it the first time, the dip kind of brings you back to baseline. You're like, that's not a big deal.
Right.
But as the highs get lower, the lows get lower. And so eventually you're not using for the high, you're using just so that you don't
get baseline.
Yeah, just to get back to baseline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, when you were in high school, I'm sure your parents were still having you go to church and stuff. What was your activity like at this point when you're free and you're on your own and you're in your early 20s? Did you kind of just like push church away, or?
I always, through this whole thing, had such a strong feeling like God was there, like He was watching over me. Like, I knew that even though I was kind of breaking rules, like I knew that this church was true. I knew that this is what I wanted for my life. I knew always like how to get back to Him. I would, and it happened when I would get in trouble with my parents too. Like, I would get caught, and then I would realize what I had done, and then I would say like, okay, I'm going to repent. I'm going to move forward. I was such good friends with the bishop. He knew when I was, when I said I needed to make an appointment, he knew.
Aww.
So I always knew how to get back. But that's, I guess, the thing with addiction is that it doesn't matter how badly you want something. It's an addiction of or it's a disease of your body and of your brain. So I couldn't want to not use as much as I possibly can. But eventually, if I don't fix the problem, I'm going back to it. When I was like early 20s, I was going to the YSA, and I would kind of go back and forth between people at the YSA, like hanging out with them often, and then people who would enable me to drink and drug.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I knew how to get back. Eventually I couldn't, I was scared. I was scared of going to jail. I was scared of the drugs not working anymore. I was scared of myself because I thought to myself, like, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Like this isn't working for me. So what is the next thing that I can take to feel the way that I was feeling? And then I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? Are you seriously thinking about like graduating to, and that really scared me. So I got into an outpatient program, was going through the outpatient program, relapsed during that, and ended up having to go to a psychiatric hospital, which, like, I have so many good things to say about psychiatric hospitals. At least the one that I went to, it was phenomenal, and it really saved me a little bit. Yeah. So during my time at the psychiatric hospital, I was able to bring like a few things with me. One of the things that I had was a Book of Mormon. Another one was just like something that a prophet had written.
Mm-hmm.
And as these days are going by and I'm like reading this book, I started to feel that, I don't know, just a joy of life, kind of. Like I found myself smiling where I felt like I hadn't been happy for no reason for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt super close to God, and I was, leaving the hospital. I was ready. I was ready to go out there and, keep on doing the good stuff, get back to church. I got out, I did all my outpatient stuff. It was really good. I'm trying to be better, trying to live on the straight and narrow, going to my parents' home ward. And somebody asked me if I would go to the YSA to help with knitting. Like they wanted me to teach people how to knit. And so I went over there and I started teaching people how to knit. And then my future husband came up to me and asked me if I would teach him how to knit. And I was like, you don't want to learn how to knit. I know you don't want to. So I taught him how to knit. I tried to teach him how to knit. He does not knit currently.
You just wanted to knit your souls together. That's
exactly. Yeah. Too smooth. And so we got engaged maybe a little while later. And it was during that time between when we started dating and then getting engaged that one day I heard somebody say something about church history completely out of context. It just was some, throwaway statement that somebody said. And I had never heard about anything surrounding those topics before. And just hearing that and pondering on it it shook me. I had kind of a moment after I'd been pondering on these things and considering, where I was like, well, am I even sure that there is a higher power? Like, maybe none of this is real. Like, what are eyeballs? and fingers. They're, you know, like
existential crisis.
yes,
Oh,
exactly.
wow.
And I went through that for a good 3 years where I didn't know. And I wasn't really trying that hard to figure it out. It was back burner. I was getting married. I was moving to Montana. I was, you know, trying to live my adult life. It was maybe 2022, when they asked me to be the secretary for the young women in my ward, which was frightening because I didn't know. I didn't know myself. I wasn't sure. And it was kind of at that point that I decided, you know, it's time to kind of buckle down and figure it out. So I began reading, praying, everything with the intent, like with intent. I felt like, you know, it was always going to be this one. It's going to be this prayer. You know, this is going to be my story that I tell people. You know, there I was praying during this time. And then I felt this feeling. I was so convinced that it was going to happen for me. And it never did. And I read the entire Book of Mormon, and I never got that confirmation that everybody talks about. You know, they said, read this book, read it, and God will tell you that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as, you know, maybe that would have been evidence that it wasn't true, for some reason, I continued. For some reason, I decided, like, okay, maybe this time I'll just move on to the Bible, and I'll do Bible and Book of Mormon a little bit. I continued praying, even though I guess like the factual side of me was telling me, like, you have gotten nothing from this. So why continue? And I did ask myself that a lot. And I think that eventually I reasoned out that, you know, if I was getting absolutely nothing, I wouldn't. So there must be something.
Right. You wouldn't keep reading it if you weren't getting anything from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and in Alcoholics Anonymous, the whole thing is based upon the fact that there is a higher power, that he can take this from you. And so, you know, I had already admitted, you know, step one, admit that you have a problem. I got it. I know. And step number two, and three are really about like believing that if there were a God, that he could take it from me, and then choosing that I'm going to give this to God. It took me a very long time because I kind of got to a point where I said, okay, maybe there is higher power. Maybe I believe that. But then to hand it over to a higher power that I really didn't know that well and wasn't super sure about was something that I wasn't ready to do for a super long time. But I think, you know, going through AA and gaining that testimony of a higher power helped me, you know, helped like that foundation of something. A while later, we started a little Spanish branch here in Montana, and I was asked to be the young women president of this little branch. So again, I was like, I don't even know for sure. I feel so weird telling teaching these things to the impressionable youth if I'm not sure? Like, that doesn't feel right.
Right.
So I sat down and I had done it multiple times where I sat down and I said, once and for all, we're going to figure it out.
Right.
Once and for all. And so I just started asking myself questions. Do I believe in a higher power? Yes. Do I believe that higher power is God of the Bible? Yes. Do I believe that Jesus Christ was a real person? Yes. Okay. Do I believe that Jesus Christ died for a specific reason? And at that point was really where I kind of went into, I went into the scriptures. Everybody always says, search, ponder, and pray. And I had never actually searched, pondered, or prayed on it before. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why don't people tell you? Why don't people tell you how to do this? So, and I'm getting all my answers and I'm figuring out these things and they're making sense to my brain, which was kind of the biggest thing for me, was making things make sense to my logic head. Mm-hmm. And so I'm having a really good time. I'm figuring all these things out. I'm feeling good about it. And I prayed and I would think about a specific situation and say, like, I see God's hand in that situation. And then the other side of me would say, well, it's as much evidence of something as it is of nothing. Like, there's no sure way for you to know. And so I'm going back and forth in my head, and it got so overwhelming because I guess I was just going back and forth. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what part of me to listen to. At a certain point, there's a quote that says, either God is everything or God is nothing. Either God made the whole earth and you and me, or he didn't. There are two options here. And so I thought about that. And as I'm going back and forth, I thought to myself, like, I think that God is everything. I think that he is. And I kind of believe that he is. So I'm making a choice to believe. And I kind of said it out loud. I said, like, I choose to believe. I choose to believe. And once I had fully, I guess, accepted what I was doing, immediately I felt just peace, just relaxation. I had been holding myself really tight because I was sobbing on my couch. And then I felt peace and I felt like my whole body just relaxed. And I was even thinking in my head, what is this? Am I going crazy? Is this bipolar right now? It could be. I don't know.
Your brain just keeps throwing doubts. Yes. You're like, chill, I'm having a moment here. And let me just have the moment.
Exactly. So I felt so sure and so comforted in that moment, knowing that you made the right choice. And it wasn't until I made the choice that God showed me that it was the correct answer. And I think that for me, that was probably really necessary. I'm so facts and logic based, I think I really needed something big in order for me to finally have that big realization. There's another quote. and I am going to butcher it, but it more or less, it says the greater the doubt, the greater the realization or like revelation.
Yeah.
The smaller the doubt, smaller the revelation. No doubt, no revelation.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I mean, there wouldn't be really a point if we didn't all doubt at some point.
Well, and we know, I believe it was Uchtdorf years ago. He brings that up. He's like, we're going to have our doubts. It's just important that you doubt your doubts, just make sure that you're always having that internal conversation. Okay, well, yeah, okay, I get that's this and that's that. I love that you just kept trying though, that you didn't just like throw in the towel at the first doubt or the second or even the 100th doubt, that you just kept saying, I don't know, something doesn't feel right about throwing in the towel. Like you really did doubt your doubts long enough to get to the point where you were finally ready to receive that revelation, and in a way that Heavenly Father knew was going to be right for you, right? Like some people need the big pillars of light, right? And some people need those tiny rays. Most of us need those tiny rays. And so I love that you like kept trying. I guess that's kind of a testament to your perseverance. Like you're going to do what you're going to do, dang it. It doesn't matter what anyone else says.
Yes. The blessing and the curse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm smiling when I was listening to your story too, because Scott wrote a book. And I mean, there are just so many things that you said that Scott wrote in his book. I want Scott to take a second just to talk about that, because I feel like it needs to be mentioned. It's just so good.
Well, I mean, similar to you, like there was when I was a bishop, actually, I had a faith crisis, and I went down a path similar to you, right, where I had to break down my faith into basic elements and then build it back up again by asking myself questions, very similar to what you did. And fortunately, I was able to do that and build that faith back up in a relatively quick fashion, right? But there was a couple weeks there where it was really hard because I was the bishop and people counted on me, and I had to figure that out. But I did, and it's awesome. Like the things that I discovered were incredibly powerful. And it actually strengthened my testimony. That's why I wrote a book about it. But yeah, it's sometimes you have to get to the bottom in order to come back up. I mean, you probably know that more than most people, right? Just because of some of the places you've been because of the drugs and the alcohol and things like that. But we all have to go down certain roads, and some of them are dark, some of them are great, full of light and hope and joy. But we have to take both types of roads in order to really, appreciate the gospel. You have to have the highs and the lows, and that is who you are and who you become. So I guess that's a really good segue into where are you now, and looking back on your life, like what are some of the lessons you've learned?
Yeah. Now I'm really good. My husband and I just got married in the temple
Aww,
last
congratulations.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Aww,
wow.
so
Okay.
Yeah, it's very recent. But yeah, it's, it was that 5-year journey. We were married for 5 years before I kind of had that breakthrough. And I knew the entire time that he wanted to get married in the temple, that it was something that was so important to him. And so finally having that realization and being able to tell him about it, being able to say like, I understand now. You know, oh my gosh, he has had so much patience with me. I can't imagine it being reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're married in the temple. We want to start a family soon. I mean, I say it all the time, and maybe it's like not very nice to me, but like I don't know what I did to deserve the life I have, to deserve the person that I got married to deserve his family. I won the lottery.
Aww.
And I really, they are who they are because of the faith, because of the church. And I'm so grateful for them and for my opportunity to be a part of their family.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Lessons from from the past. Man, you can learn from other people's mistakes. You can.
A little less painful when you do.
Yeah. Not everybody's bottom looks the same. Mm-hmm. I always thought that rock bottom would be, I'm homeless and on the streets and, like not able to house myself, but able to get drugs. That's what I thought bottom looked like. But for me, bottom was fear. The fear of what was coming next. And yeah, I think that there's sometimes like a stigma about, well, maybe like it needs to be something more intense for it to really be my rock bottom. Mm-hmm. But it really doesn't. There are many points I feel like that I could have taken as my rock bottom. But instead I continued. Mm-hmm. I know, I've learned that God knows us so personally that he knows how to talk to us. Mm-hmm. He knows the best way to communicate with us. And it's a two-way relationship. God is always going to be there and always going to, love you. The more effort and time you put into the relationship, the stronger the relationship is.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's very true too. Yeah. Even if you can't really feel it in the moment, I think that's one of the things that like I've learned throughout my life is that my relationship with my Heavenly Father can always be increasing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm always going to feel him stronger and stronger and stronger. It's just more of this assurance that I know he's there, he's listening, and that he's got my back when I'm really going to need it. And that sometimes when I think I'm going to need it is not actually when I'm going to need it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes he's going to let me walk alone. Sometimes he's going to let me figure it out on my own. He's going to be like, no, you can do it. Come on. And sometimes he's going to be like, I'm not giving you anything right now because you're not ready to hear it. And that's okay, but keep asking. I want you to keep asking. And then when you're actually ready to hear it, okay, I'll go ahead and I'll give it to you when you need it. So I love that, that you mentioned that relationship with Heavenly Father. And I really love the quote too about how either God is everything or God is nothing, because I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, and the fact that you have to make that conscious decision every day to either choose to believe or choose to doubt. Sometimes that, I don't know, might seem like an oversimplified statement, but it really takes a lot. it takes a lot to keep believing, and it takes a lot to keep doubting, right? Like it's going to be hard either way. So you might as well choose to believe, because then at least you get something out of it in the end.
Right.
And if you're wrong, you're wrong. And then you didn't waste anything anyway. But
yeah, something that I said to Christian, because I actually did tell him like I was ready to get married in the temple before I had my big conversion moment, but I felt good enough in the fact that there was higher power, and good enough about just what the meaning behind everything was, that I said, if this is true, then like that's so nice, and or like if it's true, then that's everything. If it's not true, then the meaning behind it is that I'm getting married, I'm getting sealed to the person whom I love for time and all eternity. It's just really nice.
It is.
So if I'm wrong, then I got to have such an amazing experience with my partner that, we get to share and we get to have for the rest of forever.
Yeah.
And you get to live your best life, right? Like that's what I love about the gospel is the gospel teaches us to live our best life. If you follow the teachings of the gospel, you're not going to have any regrets at the end of your life, because every day you chose to live the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And and you can that's only good. You know what I mean? Like there's only good that can come out of it. And so living the gospel is a huge blessing that we take for granted for a lot, I think. Just because that's the life we live every day, but a lot of people don't live that way. And I think they really miss out on that opportunity to continue to choose to live your best life every day. And that adds up to a great life.
Yeah.
So we're grateful that you're choosing that path, Victoria.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Every day.
I've shared this, I think, once before, and I believe it was actually with Ashley. What is her last name? I can't remember now. She has her own podcast too, the Comeback Podcast, which I'm going to encourage you to go reach out to her because you guys have some similarities in your stories and stuff like that. But I think I shared this with her in her podcast that my brother, right after he had passed away, his best friend had told me this story about him. Now, his best friend had struggled with addiction and stuff like that. And when he was going to Narcotics Anonymous, he invited my brother to come with him and just kind of like just sit with him, just be with him. And so my brother did, Zach did. And he listened to everybody share their story and share their, how much success they were having so far and if they had relapses and all the things. And at the end of the meeting, my brother got up and he said, "Can I say something?" He said, I know I'm not like really part of the group. I'm just kind of observing. My brother didn't struggle with the addictions or anything like that. But he got up and he said, "I just want all of you guys to know, because I don't know if you have anyone in your life to tell you this." He said, "I want you to know that I am so proud of you." And when my brother's best friend shared that, I thought, that is just the epitome of Christ-like love, to be able to get up and to tell someone who is going through it, who's been through it, who's getting ready to go through it, I'm so proud of you. And so I just want to extend that to you too, Victoria. I know we just met, but I am so proud of you for making those choices and for getting through the things that you've gotten through and for being a light to others and for coming on today and sharing your story and sharing your testimony with us. I definitely was able to feel that spirit through this interview. And I just think you've got some great things ahead of you. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, Victoria, before we wrap things up?
Last thoughts. Choose. I mean, every single day of our lives, we have so many choices. So, choose the thing that is going to bring you the most happiness, even if it's tough or weird.
There you go. I love that. Oh, cool. Man. All right. Well,
was that Ashley Stone? Is their last
name Stone? Yes. I was like thinking Fox, Smith. No, I was like, I know it's a 1-syllable last name. Ashley Stone. Yes. Yes. We'll get you connected. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Victoria, for coming on. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone else for tuning in and listening to Victoria. We really appreciate your support, and let's do our 5-second missionary work. Hit that share button. Let's get Victoria's story out there so that we can help share her light and her story with others that might need it.
Absolutely. And remember, if you guys have a story that you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you. So reach out to us. You can either go to latterdaylights.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the page, or you guys can email us at latterdaylights@gmail.com. Like I said, we would love to hear from you guys. Guys, this is the only way that we can continue to share light through the world, is by sharing our stories, sharing our experiences, sharing our testimonies. It's, I was thinking the other day about how we could spend our time defending our faith, or we can spend our time defining our faith. And I think that in sharing your stories, you're just defining what you believe in, and you don't have to worry about being on the defensive. You can just share what's true and what's right and what you've learned, and people can't argue against that because it's your experiences. So it really has a lot of power, and we would love to hear from more, more of you out there who are listening, to know what you've been through, what you're going through, and how you've been able to draw closer to the Savior through that. So that's our invitation. Thank you guys again for tuning in to listen. Thank you, Victoria, for coming on here today. We really appreciate you. And we hope everyone has a great week. Until next time.
Take care.